So, do you ever have a dream where you wake up from it and you didn't finish the dream out when you woke up, and you thought in your head, like, man, I need to go back to sleep and finish that dream out because I need to finish what I was doing in the dream. And if I don't, my mind is going to be blown or something, like I blow a fuse or something. So, I thought about that one morning. I woke up and I was thinking that way. And then I started thinking about the dream that I had. And I was like, my mind was already blown, and some kind of fuse was already blown on when I was sleeping. Because the dream, let me just show you what it was. It was, I had, in my dream, I had bought a used van. And I was like, okay, I need to test this van out. And my friend in the dream helped me build the engine up because it needed some work done on it. And so when I opened up the engine, it was a nice engine, but it had some, like hybrid things in it that is not normally in an engine, for the air conditioning or, something or other. But, we closed back the trunk, the hood of the engine and of the van, and I drove it around, and I was like, in my dream, I was like, wow, this has a lot of power. I got a good deal on this van, and but had so much power that I almost hit into a couple, mailboxes and a house and a person's house, and then I drove to the border, and I was about to like go across the border, and I saw all the border patrol agents and stuff, like, okay, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm turning around because I don't know why I came all the way to the border. Anyways, I drove back around. I was driving around and just testing the van out, and I went through this guy's living room and then into his kitchen and almost hit his refrigerator. And he's sitting on his couch saying, "What are you doing driving through my house?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I must have took a wrong turn. I didn't mean to. I was like, I don't know how I got in your house." So I drove out, and when I drove out of his house, I actually drove into a mall. And I was like, okay, I was in the mall, and I was driving around in the mall with my van. And then I did that for a little bit, and then I had to leave the mall because I had to go somewhere else. But in my dream, the van turned into just the van engine. But the van engine was in a suitcase. And I had to leave. But before I left, it was like TSA agents. You couldn't leave the mall unless you checked out your bags. And I'm like, oh man, I have to check out my engine in the van. So I had this engine, and I had to take it to the agent, and he's sitting in a booth with a glass, thing around him. And I have to pull this engine up top on the table, and so I had these assistants helping, and I'm like, wow, they're pulling, they're pretty strong. So we get it on there and we unzip it, and I'm like, man, you have to see my engine before I leave the mall. I can't believe that. Why? And then, and so he's like, yeah, we have to inspect it. So, everything that goes out, and I'm okay, and so I'm pulling out everything, and he says, we got to see the whole thing. And I said, you mean we have to pull apart this whole engine? And I'm looking in the end, and there's two big bags of cement, and I'm like, 2 bags of cement, what is that doing in the suitcase? But then in my dream, it made sense because I was weighing it down. The engine had to be weighed down. And so I was like, okay. And then I saw like an open container of water that was like to catch some of the water that was some part of the engine or whatever. And I'm like, wow, they didn't, moving this suitcase to show the TSA agent, they didn't spill the water. That was amazing. But, so we had to take all the stuff out of the suitcase, all the engine parts and everything. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to put this thing back together again. And I was just amazed, and I'm like, man, you have to see everything. And we took everything out. And then on the bottom of the suitcase was all the paperwork that I had gotten to buy the van itself, and all the pricing and the contract that I And I'm like, you have to see that too. You got to see, yep, we got to see everything. We got to see how much you paid for the van and all that. I'm like, I can't believe this. And I was like in a hurry, and I was like, and finally, after a little while, they said, okay, all right, you can go. And all the van parts in this engine was all over the place. And I was like, I have to put this thing back together like a puzzle. And I don't know how it goes. Where does the cement go again? The cement bags go in the suitcase. I don't know. I'm thinking this way. I'm like, I'm really frustrated because I've got all these parts laying around thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And then I wake up. And as soon as I wake up, I'm like, man, I need to go back to sleep. I need to finish that dream. I need to put those engine parts back together again and all that stuff. And then I started thinking about the dream, and I'm like, wait a minute, I really shouldn't go back to sleep and try to finish that dream out. But so, I guess I'm saying all this to say this, that not every dream that you get is from the Lord. Sometimes it is a pizza dream, a dream that your mind makes up. So don't always think there's a purpose behind a dream. I don't know if there was one behind this. Maybe someday God will reveal that everything had a meaning in that dream. But I don't know what the meaning would be at this moment. It just blows my mind that I even had a dream like that. But I do feel, even after having that dream, I feel like something's undone. I've got to put that freaking engine back together.